All right, so good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for being a part of the Goa School Talks this month. This month, we have a very interesting topic of conversation here with us, which is on mental health. And we have Malini Patel, who's joined us here for the call, as well as Dr. Peter Castellino. And I'll go through a brief introduction on both of them in a moment. So Malini currently works as an independent counselor, having pursued her postgraduate diploma in guidance and counseling through Nirmala Institute of Education. Prior to this, she held various sales, leadership, and product development positions in the financial services industry. Her most rewarding experience and engagement currently is working as a counselor with Mother Teresa's Roses, which is a home for girls, and being on the board of the Goa School. Thank you so much for being a part of this talk with us today, Malini.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Pleasure, a pleasure. We also have with us Peter Castellino. Dr. Peter Castellino is the founder and director of COOJ Mental Health Foundation. He has initiated programs in psychosocial rehabilitation of people with psychological disabilities, suicide prevention, and geriatric and dementia care. His project, Geriatric Digital Intervention Program, won the prestigious Pre-Perspective Award in Switzerland. He runs the Suicide Distress Helpline in Goa since 2013, and he actively conducts gatekeeper workshops for suicide prevention first aid. He is a past president of the Psychiatric Society of Goa and is an ex-member of the Goa State Mental Health Authority, as a member of the International Association for Suicide Prevention as well. He has received the Bulgaria Award from the Indian Psychiatric Society Western Zone in 2016. So welcome, Dr. Peter. Thank you so much for making the time with us on this call.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's my pleasure.
So before we begin, Dr. Peter, could you tell us how the of COOJ Mental Health Foundation here in Goa?
So basically, to bridge in the gap between the need for psychosocial rehabilitation of people with chronic psychiatric illnesses and the dearth. So we kind of set up COOJ 25 years back. And it's been a journey. Initially, our programs are specifically concentrated on the sector of people with psychiatric disabilities. But as time came on, we began to look at other areas where we started looking at the older population. And we felt, again, there was not much done for older people. And again, there it happened by chance when I would go to a lot of old age homes, and I would get requests from the caretakers for me to come and look at their seniors who were depressed. But what I realized, many of them were really not depressed, but they were lonely. Because again, they were all their physical needs, their spiritual needs, their health needs were being met in these homes, but not their emotional needs. And so we started off by kind of empowering senior homes, equipping them with basic systems that would allow the residents to have a better quality of life. They're basically simple measures, but they needed to be done consistently and constantly. Having also understanding that a lot of these homes don't have great financial resources. So we kind of had to partner with the community and get community involved in these programs. And they became pretty successful over a period of time. And then with that, we started our senior center for seniors, both with a mental health problem as well as those who just needed to engage themselves. And then we started specifically looking at dementia, and caregiver burnout, and people with the early stage of dementia where some form of cognitive remediation can still help them. In 2012, we looked at more the younger people, and we started feeling that there was this great need for people to be heard, to be listened to. There wasn't that platform where people could actually share their issues, and not everyone could afford counseling. Because sometimes it's not really affordable to everyone and consistently. So we looked at the issues of younger people, and we felt at that time that we would set up a distress helpline, and that would look at the entire range of emotional problems, not only from basic distress, basic despair, basic distress, right up to the point of suicidal ideation. And that's how we kind of conceptualize the suicide prevention program. And yeah, so it has been a journey. It has been a journey, and we're constantly thinking and seeing how we can develop more programs.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, Malini, you were not in the mental health area to begin with. How did you end up moving and changing your career to move into?
Well, it's nothing like Dr. Peters at all. I mean, I was totally in the corporate rat race for 3 decades in the financial services industry, the one which actually creates a lot of mental health issues for a lot of people. The most common word that we hear nowadays in that is the burnout that the financial
Yes.
services, has. Um, and I took premature retirement, and I came here. So, it's about 2019. I said it was largely spent in settling myself and stuff. And there came COVID, right? And
Yes.
it just happened by chance. I stumbled upon NIE, okay? Uh, and I happened to go there with a friend who wanted to do this course. And I was very, I was thinking of in these lines more from the workplace area, because I had been in contact with a lot of people in the workplace and, done a lot of mentorship and leadership there. And I wanted to actually work with the younger ones, especially who are coming in and needed a lot more support, right? There were, of course, the women who needed a lot more support because, but from my experience, I thought I could share a lot there. But I also realized over a period of time, the men who came, the young men who came in, they also had a lot of issues that were usually shoved under the carpet, just swept under the carpet and stuff. So actually, I went with my friends to NIE. I read their program and everything, and I was most impressed with the course. And I decided to do it myself. I was very impressed with the place and the way of teaching, and I was very, very, very happy with the. It was more focused on the practical angle than the theoretical side. So I enjoyed that a lot. And after that, I just decided to kind of, start my own independent counseling. I didn't want to join a school or anything like that. Being in this retired or semi-retired stage of mind, I wanted to kind of, curb the hours and all. And by chance, again, from my alumni, I came across this wonderful opportunity at Mother Teresa's Roses, which is a home in Parra for girls. So it's been a very rewarding and challenging time to be with these girls and whoever else I speak to, on an individual basis.
It's very endearing to know that the both of you today, Dr. Peter and Malini, you're both into the area of, I would say, help, right? So helping people with all kinds of mental health issues. And on that line, I'd like to know, Dr. Peter, if you could tell me, is there a statistic on suicide in India, in our country? Is there a clear-cut statistic on suicide? That's half the part. And the second is what percentage of adolescents or adults have mental health issues here in India?
So to understand suicide in terms of numbers, it's good to go from global to India, and local, global to local. So if you look at globally, we say around 7 lakh people die to suicide every year. It used to be 8 lakh, but somehow it is across the world. It's now around 7 lakh, which are reported cases. Yeah. Now, India contributes almost 17% of the global suicides. Yeah, so it's almost, our numbers are about, now it's about 136, 137,000 people dying to suicide every year in our country.
Every year.
Now, if you come to younger people, if you go at the national rate of suicide in India is around 12 per lakh population. Yeah. So for every
All right.
lakh people, 12 people end their life. And if you come to Goa, it's almost around 19. So it's much higher than the
Much
national
higher.
average. Yes, Goa is much higher than the national average. Now, if you go to young people in India more specifically, suicide is the leading cause of death in this population. It's the number one cause of death between the ages of 15 and 29. Yeah,
Oh, very
globally, it's
young.
in some place second, some places the third. Yeah, and again, if you see, the other competitor to suicide is road traffic accidents. Now, both are very preventable causes of suicide.
Yes.
Yeah, both are very preventable. If you look at student suicide more specifically, last year we lost almost around 13,000 students to suicide. In fact, for the last 2 years, it's been almost around 13,000. Previously, pre-COVID, it was around 9,500, then it went to 11,000, and now it's gone up to almost 13,000. So we're seeing more number of students taking their lives every year. Uh, and if you look at 13,000, it may just seem a number, but if you go to understand it, just take your college. Now the college where I studied had around 1,200 students. So I'm looking at all the students from my college being wiped out to suicide, plus another 10, 11 more colleges. So it's like, it's huge. The numbers are
Huge number.
huge. The numbers are huge. It's not small. And it's very sad to say that with such large numbers of people dying to suicide, a very preventable condition, there isn't any organized program in place, neither at the national level, neither at the state level. No? You have programs in place for everything else, for every other illness. For HIV, they came out with some beautiful programs with tuberculosis, with polio, with malaria, yeah, prevention. There are beautiful programs. But now the focus needs to shift from infective diseases to non-communicable disease. We call them NCDs, yeah, non-communicable diseases. Are not only disease, but non-communicable conditions also. Yeah, so suicide comes under that. Mental health comes under a non-communicable disease. Okay, and a lot of work again is being for road traffic accidents and road traffic safety. In fact, I think this week or the next week is road traffic accident safety week,
Safety.
yeah, the safety week, and there's a lot of work going on, targeted work in this area. Unfortunately, in suicide prevention, there isn't targeted work. People are doing piecemeal work, like the education department will do their bit a little bit. People will do piecemeal work, but it's not coming in together. When
It's
you
not an
ask me about
organized way.
what are the, it's not done in an organized way, no. And it's really sad because again, and these are the numbers that of people only have ended their life. We have to remember, for every person that ends their life, there are 20 more people who have attempted and survived. Yeah, that's, so the numbers have gone 20 times up. And for every person that's thinking, 20 people have attempted survived, and 100 more people are thinking about dying. Yeah, so for everyone who died to suicide, 100 more are thinking of dying. So we're looking at large numbers, and I think work needs to be done in this area. When you ask me the question, what is the statistics of people with mental health problems? So in India, again, it's a broad range. They say 1 out of every 5 to 8 people have some form of a diagnosable mental health condition.
Okay.
Yeah. So for every between 5 and 8, and with children and adolescents, it is 1 out of 8 child and adolescent has some form of a mental health condition, diagnosable. So again, these are large numbers, and we need to have more uh, kind of interventions in place, which are cost-effective thing, looking at the fact that we come from a low resource country, a low resource country. So with any low resource country, I mean, we have to look at out of the box solutions for help.
Absolutely. Yes.
And that's something which is is something that in India, a lot of the researchers are actually looking at task shifting. When no more we're looking at the specialized psychiatrists and psychologists only reaching out to people with mental health issues, but also task shifting to lay people, where we train lay people and use lay people in the field, who can do basic work. And India is becoming a pioneer in this area of work, which is really good.
That's very heartening, very good to hear. And underlying all of these issues, in terms of if you look at suicide and with adolescents, what would be an underlying cause to a large extent for something like suicide in an adolescent population?
See, one thing we have to know that adolescents are in the process of maturing. As they grow into adulthood, they're still in that process. They have not got the complete all the skills. They've not developed. The brain is still in the process of development. So the brain itself the impulsive brain is still very much at play. And therefore, if you see both suicide and impulsive suicides are much higher in younger people, not the planned suicides. Impulsive suicides are more higher risk taking. So therefore, accidents are again much more higher, So one is the very biology of the brain, where the impulsive brain is more at play rather than the thinking brain. The reasoning brain is still in the process of development. And as I said, they've not yet developed the maturity. So they really don't know how to deal with their emotions. There's a flood of emotions. They're feeling all these things. How do you deal with it? They find themselves lost. They find themselves lost in dealing with the simple problems that come up in life. And decision-making capacity. It is in the life skill training, how to handle basic issues of life. So I think this is at the broader level, these are the basic issues. If you go to more specific areas, you'll see there are difficulties in, that's across the board, relationship issues, academic issues. Today, the whole, caught up between the past and the future, and where we are, like who we are, that the conscientious experience of really who we are in the social media pressures, peer pressures, addictions. The range is huge, But I think at the top level, these are the issues, and therefore they're not able to make some wise decisions,
Right, wonderful. Malini, in your scope as a counselor, what would be causes of or underlying causes of, say, mental health issues with the young people that you deal with?
Just like Dr. Peter pointed out, right? It is, of course, the whole gamut of. Are you asking specifically to with suicide or just generally mental health?
Just mental health.
Okay, so I think just like he pointed out, there are this whole range of issues, and like the brain is still in development; it is not fully mature, and the social pressures, the stigma, attached to a lot of things, and let's say also the familial pressures. There's been a huge shift in in the way people are moving. You realize that your parents have done a lot, especially for students, right, to put you where you are. Okay, a large part of India is moving. Now, again, the pressure is to just be an engineer or a doctor and all in that segment. There isn't enough career counseling happening to open up the field, in that sense to open up the minds of people to what all can be possible. In case they have any learning disabilities or anything, it is still considered to be a very personal issue versus something that can be tackled. And, the person might be from a very creative background and might be looking at things very differently. Then there's again this huge gap between our educations or the kind of education or academics that we receive and the kind of jobs that we will get. In a large part of India, the children believe that they will get their jobs and start working so that they can move their entire their whole family a strata or two above. And then that
Absolutely.
does not happen. Over and above that, with social media, I think people have also lost the ability to be honest, right? To be absolutely naked and honest with their own with their own emotions, with their own feelings, right?
Mm.
Secondly, in our parenting, we are not as, I mean, this is just a very personal view. I mean, doctor would know better, right? But we do not teach our children how to recognize their emotions and how to deal with their emotions. Yes, there is happy, sad, angry, scared, but then the more finer ones is something that we just ignore, right? We do not encourage our children to show love, to express love, to uh you know to acknowledge, to appreciate. Yes, there is a lot of gratitude, there is a lot of appreciation, but it's all God related. But it's not on a one-to-one level. It is not. Today I feel that, I mean, in a place like Goa, yes, you still have a lot of nature, so people can, automatically be appreciative about nature. But if you ask somebody to just appreciate the sunset, it is like, oh my God, what are you talking about? Okay, I saw it. Okay, the colors. Okay, now what?
Yeah.
So the attention span, the concentration, the focus is coming down. Then we have again confused people with this whole thing about multitasking. The more you multitask, the better you are. But the more confused you are. On the other side, we are also looking, and this is another thing which scares me, is about AI. In AI, we are looking at perfection at a different level, right? Already we are pushing our children through peer pressure and through everything else towards perfection, right? And now with AI, they are seeing further perfection. One of the most strangest conversations, I mean, and it could be the reality of the future, when I was talking to somebody about futuristic AI, is something that they were working at a project in school, right? And
Wow.
the thing is, they were looking at AI replacing relationships for people. And for them, the person I was talking to, it seemed to be a very normal thing, is because, then you're, for that child mind, it is, I don't have any breakup issues. I have no relationship issues. My partner does exactly what I want. So I said, then it's not, even if you have a pet, it's not going to behave that way. A pet will also get angry with you. So how do you clone a relationship? So I just feel that some of these issues create more problems for them, because we're not taking the time to explain things to them. And the thing is, they're getting more and more secretive about emotions or feelings that they can't handle. So they kind of push them down, and then they
Yes.
kind of get into this area where you want to be numb, where when you're earning, Friday nights become the biggest nights, and what you want to do is, the problem that we have is binge drinking or some kind of addiction, is because you just want that numbness to not feel. So uh but that's on the negative side. But on the other side, you can also see them using this entire social media and everything to kind of free themselves, to kind of, certain people even express themselves. And I feel that the more privileged children, right, who normally will follow will form the example, and others will follow, I guess, in a period of time. History has always proven that, has are moving away from this materialistic world and are getting into sustainability and environment
Yes.
and everything else, which will help them, probably show the way to the rest and balance it out, hopefully.
True. So when we talk about this entire shift of adolescents trying to numb things down, we also see the entire shift that has gone from mental disease to mental health. So when we talk about mental health for the young adolescents in school, in college at this time, what does that look like? Dr. Peter, yes, if you could answer that.
I think you brought in a very, very important aspect. Number one is, a lot of people get afraid of the word mental health because they automatically associate mental health with disease. But
Yes.
people have forgotten that mental health is the very core of who we are. And if today, see, a lot of people want to they exercise their physical health a lot. They take care of their physical beings. They eat well, they gym well, they exercise well, they know about all the diet plans, keto diets, and low calorie deficit diets, and they know everything. They know about strength training and which muscles to work on which day and everything. But you may have a fantastic physique, but if your mind doesn't function well, you're definitely not going to be successful in life. Yeah.
Yes.
And everyone wants to be successful. Everyone wants to grow in their careers, in they basically fulfill the goals that each one has set up for themselves and their dreams. But number one, I always say that you cannot, first of all, know your own dream for yourself and what you really want for yourself if you do not know who you are. And each one is unique. Each person is unique. And today, I think if everyone is going with the flow of society, it's because maybe they have not understood themselves. There are very few people like Malini who have actually understood herself and has moved away from the flow. She's actually moved away from the high-flying corporate job into a semi-urban village life Goa. Okay, and is working with a population and gone into a field that makes her happy. So people have forgotten this happiness quotient, and I think that happiness quotient can come from self-understanding and then self-acceptance. Yeah. So I think this is one huge aspect, because I'll tell you, 65 to 70 to some 80% of ourselves we do not know. If you know that Johari's window, which has got two parts where I don't know, you don't know, and the part where you know and I don't know, that part, which is the hidden part, is a larger part of ourselves. And the only way to know ourselves is the period of self-discovery. And self-discovery can come in various forms. And one way it comes in the form of talking to someone else. The more you talk, the more you understand yourself, the more you discover, build up your spiritual life, build up every facet of your life, and that self-discovery comes in. So that is a very important aspect of mental health. The other aspect, as I mentioned, is just knowing how to live your life today under the pressures of life. How to build resilience. And it goes back to your previous question about suicide in younger people, where they do not have the resilience to handle the pressures. And mind you, the pressures today are a lot more than the pressures we had, because at our generation, we communicated. We communicated. Today, they do not know how to communicate, and the communications is more through texting, through a non-verbal communication. Non.
Yes, it is a
spoken communication. Yeah. So the skills are going down, and therefore it's, as I think Malini said, it's very hidden. It's very hidden, and they're not able to express themselves. And all this causes those kind of pressure. So I think mental health in school, the school mental health program is very, very important, because see, a lot of people might have problems with attention deficit, very common. Learning disability, very common. Emotional dysregulation, very common. Yeah. Your thought process, your perceptions, and these are the normal facets of the mind. And we've seen it right through. Not everyone who has a high IQ is successful. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
People who have a better EQ can be a lot more successful.
Yes.
So how do you build that EQ in a system that trains you only to that tests more your memory capacity than any other aspect of your life, So I think this is something which is very important, which I think the education system is beginning to understand, and they are taking measures, which is a very good step. I mean, the very fact that they're thinking about it is very good. And at least in Goa, we are blessed. A lot of our schools do have student counselors that come in, compared to the rest of the country, where many states do not have that facility. I mean, we can discuss that our facility that we have is not adequate, but at least we have it. We have a starting point. So absolutely. Yes, the focus on building mental wellness is very important.
Is important. How does one seek help today? Now, let's say, for example, you have a young adolescent who identifies that they're depressed, how do they seek help? And how do they move from that tangent of being depressed to being mentally well? Malini, if you could throw some light on that.
The first thing is for them to actually recognize that they have, if you're in a school environment or something, you are actually guided, right? So a lot of times people don't recognize that they have a problem. Okay. In that sense, they think they're just fighting it on their own. They carry that burden silently. In school, your work will suffer, your appearance will suffer, or there'll be some sloppiness or whatever, and maybe your teacher will send you to the counselor, who will then help you probe into yourself and help you recognize where you are actually getting affected and you are getting bothered, right?
Yes.
Unfortunately, in the workplace, it becomes even more uh, questionable, is because in case your manager or your boss, points it out, right? We are at a stage where in a lot of companies, there is a huge amount of distrust where HR is concerned. They don't know whether this will go down into your files and it'll stop your promotion somewhere. So when this comes, you kind of shirk it and you try to avoid it even more.
Yes.
Right? The other thing is that the Western culture and the Eastern culture are extremely different. The Eastern culture works a lot more on, on team spirit, on working together, on sharing and caring and stuff, if we let it be the way it is. But then we adopt the Western culture where we go into individualized metrics, right? Which again scare people off because we are not aggressive by nature. And it's not only us. You look right across the Asian side, and to a certain extent, even the Africans, right? We're not very aggressive by nature. We're not very individualistic because we all have a family kind of background that we have grown up in. Correct? So when you're asked to be a little individualistic, it's like a thorn. You stand out. But then you try to adopt this and you try to push with it, which is not part of your grain. So again, you forget yourself and you forget your own values and who you are. And then, like Dr. Peter said, the main thing is trying to find yourself and grow within what is good for you and what you are good at, which then becomes a little more blurred. So coming to your question as how to seek help is extremely in my eyes, it's a little difficult, is because, again, a lot of people go to counselors assuming that they will give you the answers. Whereas a counselor can only help you delve deeper and point you into certain directions of, self-realization, maybe.
Absolutely.
So, but I mean,
just to continue, I mean, there are different ways in which one is like face-to-face counseling. Go to your teachers, go to your adults, go to anyone who you can trust. Today, I mean, you can pick up a phone and call a helpline. Yeah, at least you can get the basic emotional support through a helpline. If you don't want to be seen in a counselor, you can't afford it, maybe. Okay. Also now there are programs, especially for younger people, because they, as I said, they're not really in the habit of speaking. Now there are chatbots that are being developed, okay, where people can get help through chatting through. So you have two types of chatbots. One is through the AI, where AI kind of helps you, and the other chatbot is where now they've developed, they've pulled in a resource of it's basically peer support. So a lot of young people have kind of engaged in the program where they have been trained how to provide emotional support to their friends, and they have taken slots right through the night also. So like, because we realized a lot of people are awake through the night, or they, because of their work, maybe they're awake through the night. So people have dedicated slots of time, and during that time, they are available to provide that peer support through chats. Right?
All right.
So there are different forms of support that young people can avail. And one thing I want to tell you is that actually young people today are not afraid to take the help. They are coming out a lot more than what older people are, because the older people are still living under that stigma. I think the
Still
stigma has
stigmatized,
reduced
yes.
considerably with younger people as it is being normalized to take help. A lot of programs like the one you're having right now is actually helping people to look at mental health in a totally different light. So that's a huge step in the shift towards a positive way of thinking.
Yes.
Yeah.
We also see a lot more people, even in terms of that the celebrities coming out very openly talking about their depression.
Yes.
And I was wondering that at one point of time, everybody would have been depressed at one point of time. You don't have anyone who's depression free. Is that such a bad thing?
So I don't know whether everyone has been clinically depressed at one point in time,
Yes.
but everyone has experienced sadness.
Sadness,
You know,
yes.
so there's a difference between clinical depression and plain sadness. Plain sadness is something everyone has experienced. Clinical depression, I don't think everyone has experienced. Then it would have been like 100%. Everyone would have had some kind of a mental health issue. But when we call it a clinical depression, is when now that the sad mood becomes so pervasive or the intensity becomes so severe to the point where it's not affecting your day-to-day life. Yeah. So as soon as any issue begins to affect your day-to-day life, that's when we call it a clinical problem. Yeah. So no, normal depression is a normal emotion. We all feel it. And it's okay. And I think if you don't feel it, there's something wrong with you. You know, we all feel sad, we all feel happy, we all feel afraid, and we all feel that joy, sad, fear, anxiety. Yeah, all the whole range of emotions. I think that's the meaning of living a full life. And being fully alive and human is to experience all the emotions.
Yes, yes. So I think this is quite interesting. I remember I once had a young boy, a trainee, who a senior chef had shouted at him, and then he didn't report to work for a number of days. And then when he came back, I asked him, I said, "What happened?" And he said, I'm depressed, and I couldn't accept it with the way I was shouted at. I'm already suffering from depression." So I asked him the question. I said, "Are you seeing a counselor?" And he said, "Yes, I am seeing a counselor and a psychologist regarding this." So I think the more people talk about it, the more even organizations start opening up to addressing these issues.
As I mentioned, we set up the helpline in 2013. Um, as part of the Befrienders Worldwide Network. Yeah, and there is the local Befrienders India chapter. So we are one of the 16, and those numbers can change, sometimes 14, sometimes 15, the number of organizations in India that run befriending helplines. Now, what is the difference between a befriending helpline and other helplines is that we follow the guidelines, and they are very strict guidelines on how you kind of talk to someone. The whole principles that we use are one of being non-judgmental, non-advisory, honest, empathetic. So we have certain guidelines that we have to follow, and a lot of our volunteers initially, when we recruit them, they find it very difficult to follow some of those principles. But with time, they begin to see the sense in these principles. So the helpline that we run is basically provides an empathetic listening, emotional support service. It is volunteer run, and it is from Monday to Friday between 1 to 7 p.m. It's fully confidential. So we will not even ask you what's your name, who you are from, where you're from, what you do. We don't ask any of these questions. We only basically we listen to your issues, and we provide that emotional support. And through that, people are able to kind of one, it provides catharsis for them. One, they feel that they can discuss anything in a very safe space, and through that, they're able to sift to their issues and maybe come up with solutions, maybe not. For people who are suicidal, it kind of shifts them from, we hope that it shift them towards a little bit less suicidal feeling. or non-suicidal feeling. The ideation hopefully will actually, the intensity would come down and it shifts.
Yes.
At the same time, we respect a person. If he still wants to end his life, even after talking to us, we do not take that away from him. It is his choice. But our job is at that time to give him that space to vent. And hopefully at that time, he may feel a little better and shift towards feeling non-suicidal. Yeah. It is volunteer run, and we are always looking out for volunteers. So if there's anyone who would like to volunteer, you have to give us 4 hours of your time once a week. You do not have to be a professional. You do not have to be trained. We will train you. All we hope is that you have basically you're a good listener, and basically you are non-judgmental. You accept the whole plethora of life, and all its different facets, and those different people are different, and we need to respect all people, regardless of where they come from, what they do, their choices. It may be very different from ours, but we have to learn to respect them. We need to empathize with people. So if you have something basic on those lines in your personality, and have 4 hours once a week from home, you don't have to come to our center also. Yeah, only for the training you have to come to our center, and yeah, you can do a lot of, you can help support the community.
Wonderful. So we hope we have a lot of young adolescents who would be listening onto this call, who would be keen on being a part of the distress helpline to help others as well. And one last point that I have is for the youngsters who are looking out for their first jobs, is there a particular industry that has more numbers of mental health issues or depression compared to others? And
let Malini answer the question.
I don't think so. I don't think so, because it's I feel it's a more individualistic thing about the way that you are, right?
Yes.
I mean, I might say a certain thing was very traumatic for me, right?
Yes.
And it can push me back into another thing is because of some other background or whatever that might be there in my subconscious that I'm not, or some other experiences or whatever. But or the way I have reacted as a child to something or whatever, whereas another person has not. So I don't think you can actually put it out as any particular field. Generally, I feel any field that you have been forced into and you are not doing it out of your own desire, right?
Yes.
Could be one of the biggest reasons, So whatever work you do that keeps you happy, if you're a painter and you're into art or whatever, or in any creative area, then that's lovely. If you're a, if you're a numbers person and you've been asked to, do something creative, you're going to be just as miserable, right? So vice versa. So it's just, you can't really say. I don't think Dr. Peter would be, you could probably add, but I don't think it would be, you can say any one particular field per se. It's very individualistic.
I don't have, but I would generally say like organizations which have a lot of targets,
yes,
and people have to work
organization
with
based, I agree with
targets,
you.
and they're given multiple. I won't say organization, but I would say the way organizations run. Like some people are burdened with too many jobs, or maybe their job tasks are not clearly defined to them, or they are their superiors. Like I know in, and I don't want to say this out, but I know in one particular organization, they have no pressure doing their work, but the pressure is from the superiors. And interference from other agencies that come in. So it's varied. It's varied.
It's
And
varied, yeah.
it's varied. Some people have the capacity, some people don't. But I always feel if you don't have the capacity, please speak it out. Don't sit quiet. Speak it out. Try your best to find solutions. The issue is that a lot of people just sit with those issues and they complain. But as soon as you start speaking out, at least you have an outlet to vent. Secondly, maybe you'll get a support system around you that will help you. Okay. And the third thing is maybe some solutions will emerge as you start speaking out. So I think that's very important.
I couldn't agree more. The best thing about speaking out, a lot of times, it depends on how you speak out. But if you do it in a factual and a courteous manner, maybe because the other person is also doing a job, and let's say, you have a shrieky boss. Okay. And a lot of people get very unnerved with a shrieky, unreasonable boss. But that might also be coming from certain fears and from his superiors. So when you speak out, maybe he can affect change because he realizes something needs to be changed. Because at the
Absolutely.
end of it, every organization just wants their margins to increase, right? Okay. So, it's
Yes. So we cannot pinpoint any industry, maybe
We
just the
cannot.
style of working in that in specific industries.
Yes.
On a closing note, would there be a small bit of wisdom that you could hand out to our adolescent listeners? So both of you could share maybe one or two bits that could benefit our younger viewers as well.
So,
well,
go
you go
ahead.
first, Doctor.
So my pieces, I mean, I think the best part of our lives is self-discovery. And I think every adolescent, every human being should undertake that journey, and it's very simple to know the things that you're good at, your strengths, to know your weaknesses, to see the things that you can change about yourself and the things that you just have to accept. And I think when you have this perspective, and as you understand your defenses, and what makes you tick, what makes you behave in a particular way, you understand your personality, you understand your traits, you understand then what you really want from life. I think that builds in so much of confidence, and that gives you the energy to live your life on your terms. And I think once you live life on your terms, you don't care about anyone, and really you build a resilience that it takes you to a different level of life altogether. So my advice to anyone is undertake this journey of self-discovery, self-awareness, and I think that will be a beautiful adventure for you. And I think it'll give you that level of strength that is required to live life in today's world. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Peter. Malini, is there any advice that could come from you as well?
I couldn't agree with Dr. Mob. What I always tell my people to do is, of course, the balance of life is very, very, very important, right? And one thing I always advise all the adolescents, as they're going into the work field to do is hang on to your hobby. Find your hobby and hang on to it. Because if you hang on to your hobby, you will automatically get your balance of life in place because you will find time for that. If you find time for that, you will find time for everything else. Because in life, the first thing that you give up is what you love the most, and that is your hobby. Because in the pressures of time, you say, okay, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this. And in a way, for those who really love their hobby, that is a meditation. You don't need to get into another mindfulness or meditation or whatever. Do your hobby. That is meditation for you. It keeps you balanced. It keeps you grounded.
Wonderful. So thank you, Dr. Peter and Malini, for being a part of this. We would now keep the floor open for any questions from any of our participants here. If there are any participants who would like to ask any questions directly to Dr. Peter and to Malini, you could unmute yourself and ask your questions. And we have received 3 questions from one of our participants here called Sajid. And I'll read off his questions one by one. So Sajid's the first question is, how does substance abuse impact mental health issues in adults? Either of you could take it up.
So
Doctor,
substance abuse is basically one of the mental health issues, So when we look at substance abuse, it comes under mental health, and it can go back and forth. So either a person who has a disturbed functioning of mind can lead to consuming substances and abuse. I won't say consuming, but abusing substances, like someone who is prone to depression, anxiety, as coping with their stress, they can start abusing substances. And then someone who has substance abuse, chronic substance abuse, they can lead to having mental health conditions. Then it can go back and forth. Yeah?
Yes.
So yeah, so and it is and when you look at substance, there's like the substance called substance use, abuse, and dependence. Yeah, so a lot of people use substances. Sometimes they'll drink, they'll smoke, but not in a way which is actually harmful. No, I mean, we come from a community where alcohol is fine at a social occasion. It's fine. There's absolutely no problem. But it can get into a problem when you binge drink. When you binge drink, and that can cause a lot of problems. And then if you constantly binge drink and you're always dependent on the substance, that's called dependent. Yeah, where if you do not get a substance, you go through physical and or psychological withdrawals, then that would be the dependency part of it. Yeah. So we have to remember there is use, abuse, and there's dependency.
Yes.
And you can go back and forth between one leading to the other. Yeah. But today, beyond substance use, dependency is the basic addictions on social media, on your phones, and it's really sad because it is affecting our mental health in a very bad way. Because if you see most people today, they do not sleep in the earlier time, they sleep at 10:30, 11. Absolutely not. Everyone's sleeping time is shifted to 12:31, 1:32. And you ask anyone what are they doing before that, they're watching they're viewing their phones either on social media or watching reels. Now, what is the issue with reels is it causes a brief dopamine rush. Yeah, a dopamine rush for a short time, and then it goes back. And then again, you want the next dopamine rush, and then you want the next dopamine rush. So people are getting addicted to watching reels, number one. Number two, watching reels for too long is actually reducing your concentration span. So this is becoming a new issue of attention deficit, yeah, being caused due to overuse of watching reels, or what do you call that? Scrolling. And yeah, and your sleep quality is reducing. And what happens in sleep is repair of the body.
Yes.
So if you're not getting enough of time in repair of the body, it is actually affecting your health the next day, and long-term longevity is actually reducing. Yeah. So people do not realize the long-term hazards of sleep deprivation and watching these reels before bed. Yeah. So I think one advice, if you want to ask me, is please sleep better, sleep earlier,
Yes.
keep your phones off at least half an hour before going to bed. Use better methods of unwinding, like maybe reading a book or meditating or listening to some light music, or so simple other ways would actually help rather than using the phones and especially reels, because they're very addictive. Yeah.
Absolutely. So Sajid also had a follow-up question as to what are the signs to easily identify a person who is dealing with mental health issues?
Well, there are a lot of signs, I mean, it depends, right? But one is hyperactivity, uh, you know, uh, irrational behavior, like either becoming too excited or too angry or anything, at small issues, right? Um, well, as Doctor pointed out earlier, for depression, not being able to perform at a regular level for a long period of time, like not just feeling sad, but that feeling of sadness doesn't leave you. So you see somebody who's gloomy or not this things, who is again like children, who come in, who are not kept, who are not reacting, who are not laughing, who are not playing, who are, there are children who are reserved, but they're very confident and they are happy in themselves. But you will also see a child who is reserved, who is not happy in themselves, right?
Yeah.
That kind of child could have an, a, 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 a mental health issue or something, whereas the other one would not. Where you see fear, where you see, you know, uh, or the absolute opposite of it, where there is excessive bullying or aggressiveness or whatever, then these are all signs that need to be kind of taken a little more deeply, I would feel.
Wonderful. We have a question here from Afzal, who says, how can one be consistently productive while maintaining mental peace?
Well, if you are at mental peace, you are consistently productive anyways, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
but one of the key things is if you're not, I mean, I'm a big believer in journaling. I believe, just like doctor said, read or whatever. Sometimes journaling also helps. Sometimes you have nothing to write and you find you're totally bored or whatever, and you'll just fall asleep. Sometimes you have a lot to write, right? It's a lovely tool to even discover yourself and to also find out the triggers sometimes that you are not aware of that, irritate you and push the wrong buttons in you.
Um, do you mind? Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Afzal. So I had a follow-through question. The reason why I asked this was because we being students and it's a very fast-paced world, and the task given to us is, I mean, like I do kind of multiple tasking a lot, except for studies as well. So I mean, like when I say consistently productive, what I meant was that I get driven off very quickly because I try to give my 100% most of the time. So my productivity then reduces, and then I kind of my attention span also reduces. So I wanted to know, how do I maintain that consistently while being productive also?
Yeah, so that's so there could be many factors for this. Yeah, multiple. It's on a superficial level, it's difficult to answer that question. But yeah, maybe sometimes we're too perfectionist. I mean, we have a perfectionist kind of attitude. So that can cause the stress that we're not really happy with what we're doing, and we're constantly probably checking, we're feeling anxious about what we're doing. So even though we're spending a lot of time working, maybe at the end of it, we find that we've not, we could have done a lot more in the time that we have done. And one could be compulsive habits of checking and just being not happy with what we're doing, or maybe just trying to do too many things at one time. Yeah. Yeah, at the same time. And especially people who work on the laptops, you'll find multiple windows open. They're not just doing one thing, they're doing multiple things. So it's always good to finish one and then go to the next, finish the next and go to the third, rather than doing too many things at one time. The second thing is it could be maybe we have an issue with focusing. We're not able to focus for too long. So as soon as we do a little task, mind goes somewhere else, and then we have to shift to something else. We start that task and then we have to go somewhere else. We're not able to focus on one thing for too long. So that could be a problem. And maybe just trying to do too many things at one time. I think sometimes that could be the issue.
Understood. Thank you.
I think what you're trying to say is that it's okay not to always be consistent or hyper effective all the time.
Perfect.
I think everybody
Yeah.
needs a bit of their downtime for themselves as well.
And I think what Malini said is something very important. We have to have a work-life balance.
Yes.
So we shouldn't put all our eggs into one basket, because we have different aspects to our lives. One life is our work, our studies, our career growth, but we also have families, we also have friends, we also have our hobbies, we also have our other talents that we have, and we need to spend time nurturing and taking care of ourselves also. Self-care is very, very important. So having this balanced approach, and maybe it depends on every stage of your life, the amount of time you can give to each aspect. You can give, so maybe at sometimes you will give more time to self-care and less time to work, sometimes more time to work and less time to self-care, and maybe balance the family time. Basically it's the balancing act, and that's something very, very important that people have to understand and learn. Yeah.
And maybe also, Afzal, you can define perfection for yourself. Since you said that you are trying to do things perfectly, what does perfection mean to you? Right?
Yeah.
And to what degree do you think perfection goes? And then question it in every aspect of your life and then add it up and see, does it work?
So
And
understood.
then decide which ones of it and to what degree you want to go. You can't run every race in life. You can't win in every race if you decide to, correct? Do you agree with that?
Yeah,
So
very
choose,
much.
choose which ones.
I mean, like we right now, me being in 20s, I'm at such an age that I do have to choose a path, and we have multiple options in front of me. So I'm very much confused about that, but I'm figuring it out step by step.
That's the right way. That's not.
Wonderful. That's good to know, observe. Yes. So Malini and Dr. Peter, thank you so much for being a part of this very interactive talk. I think it is the need of the hour that we spend so much more time talking about mental health, not just with adolescents, but across the board with everybody. And the more we talk about it, the more accepting we get of who we are, and the better we are as individuals, the better our country is, and so on. So thank you so much once again for joining us on the Goa School.
Thank you for having us.
Our
Thank
pleasure.
you, Jonathan,
Yes.
and thank you, Dr. Peter. I enjoyed
Yes.
all your views. Thank you so much. Thanks, Afzal, for all your questions.
Thank you,
And
ma'am. Thank you
Paloma
for being
for
so patient.
organizing the whole thing.
It's a pleasure. And I think you'll also covered up Sajid's question about self-care. So it was also cleared up there. So thank you so much for doing that. Thanks, everyone.
Sajid. And
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
your time.
everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Have a pleasant evening.